First off, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I know you've been asked for a lot of interviews, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. And how many text messages and phone calls did you get right afterwards?
I had 46 text messages and 20 voicemails on Monday.
Golly, it's just been overwhelming.
Everyone. Yeah, I talked to all majors, minors.
And you finally got back home here in Madera, and you're tired.
Yeah.
Oh, exhausted.
Yeah.
I never imagined how I could feel this way. I thought that just the survivors and the families of those who had perished, that they would have to deal with some differences in our lives.
Emotional.
The emotional differences. I've been so tired, and I just got so that I wanted to withdraw from everything. I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just repeating and repeating and repeating everything.
It's emotional still, I can see it. Talk to me about that early morning Monday.
Well, I've been blessed with the ability to do what I have to do when something happens. And so when I woke up to the pounding on the boat, my first thing is to wake Bob up. He's hard of hearing, and I didn't know if he heard it. And we got out of bed, and when you're out on the ocean, you think you're alone.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there's something there. You're hesitant. But my husband saw the men in the inflatable and opened the door right away. And that's when he saw the fire.
Tell me about that, Bob.
Well, I opened the door, and here's 5 guys on the transom, in the back of the boat, and in this inflatable, and they're calling for help. And I look out just past them, and I see this boat totally in flame. It was from one end to the other. There wasn't a part of that boat that wasn't on fire. The flames could have been 30 feet high.
You can't unsee that.
No.
Oh, no.
And in fact, the other day, what was happening too is that every now and again, one of the dive tanks, that's what we figured it was, would get hot enough to blow. And so like a door slammed on a car the other day, and it was like that same sound, and I can still hear it echoing through the area there.
Describe the crew members that you saw, Mrs. Hansen. What did they look like? Did they smell like smoke? Were they shaking?
No.
Were they crying?
They were shaking. 2 of them were crying. One, the young man with a broken leg was in agony, and he was lying in water in the dinghy, and just taking him out of the dinghy and into the boat was a terribly agonizing procedure to have to even move him. And then the rest of them came on board, and just making him comfortable, they were all soaking wet, and they were wearing what they had worn to bed, except for the captain, who had jeans on and a t-shirt, I think. And so once we got the injured man on board, I went and I got towels and some of my husband's clothes to try and help the guys get more comfortable. And
what did they say? What did they say to you, Bob? What did they say about the boat? What happened?
Well, they just said that they woke up and went to the fire. The captain had tried to send out a mayday, but there was so much smoke in the wheelhouse that he couldn't get it off. So I attended to that area, to getting a hold of the Coast Guard and what do you want me to do, and Shirley tended to the crew members to try and make them as comfortable as possible, and so forth. So I went up in the helm and hailed the Coast Guard, gave them my position. I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't read the Latin lawn, so I told them what cove we were in.
Right.
And then later on, I right away put my glasses on, and I could give them proper position.
Coordinates. Yeah. When did it sink in that there were that many people on board?
Well, originally, for me, I'd seen a commercial boat out. It looked like they were fishing for squid or something, to do quite a bit of that out of there. And so I thought originally, well, okay, when they said that their boat was on fire, I thought, well, it's that commercial boat. I got the whole crew here. Let the boat burn, we'll be good. And then when he said, no, we're not a commercial boat, we're a dive boat, and we have 34 souls on board.
What did that do to you when you heard that?
And I looked at that boat and I was, I can't get them out of there. I can't help these people.
Yeah.
You're so helpless. I mean,
How did it burn so quickly?
So quickly from one end to the other. But, for us, we had to sit there and do whatever I asked the Coast Guard, do I lift the anchor? What do you want me to do? They said, no, we want you to stay right there. We don't want you to move. Keep your radio on 22 Alpha. And so for an hour, because it took that long, we were 25 miles offshore. And it took that long before the Coast Guard and a fireboat and so forth arrived, but it wouldn't have made any difference that they were 5 minutes away. So for an hour, we sat there and watched that boat burn, knowing that what was inside there.
And at a certain point, some of the crew members went back. Talk to me about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was instructed by the Coast Guard to put 2 guys back in their dinghy, give them a flashlight, so I also gave them 2 handheld VHF radios, so that then they could go out there and search for survivors if there were any. And so they were out there until the rest of the help arrived, and then they were told to come on back to our boat.
Just unreal.
Unreal and so terribly overwhelming. The one man who was the oldest of the crew, he worked in the galley, and he told me that he was up at 1:30 in the morning. They had celebrated the 3 birthdays, and he was doing cleanup, getting ready for the morning. And it was 1:30, he said, because he knew that he could go back to bed for 3 hours before he had to get up again. And he said that he heard a noise, and he thought it was like a chair being knocked over. And he lay there, and then he thought, it's dark, better get up and look. And he said he opened the door from the wheelhouse, and that's the only door that was on the boat. And all he saw was orange. And he kept saying over and over again that he felt that the fire must have started in the galley, which was underneath the wheelhouse. And then underneath that were the bunks where everyone was sleeping down in the bottom of the boat. And he said that he couldn't even get to the stairway. And he said all he could do was go back and yell and wake up the other guys in the wheelhouse.
What did he say he did? What did he yell? How did he scream?
He just yelled fire. And he said to me that he thought that perhaps the fire could have started from where everyone plugged in all their phones and their cameras and batteries and everything. Mm-hmm. He said they had a lot of plug-ins. And the other 2 young men were more visibly distraught. The one young man, I asked him, you have your glasses? And he said, that's the first thing I reach for when I wake up. And that was the only personal item that those men had, all of them.
Amazing. Do you think that you will ever talk to them again? Do you think you'll ever reach out to them?
I don't know. I'm sure that, you know, with that, you know, there's undoubtedly going to be lawsuits, and I'm afraid that we may be called, as
Right.
my wife doesn't want to hear this, but
Yeah.
you know, we may or may not, you know, but we just did what the only thing we could do.
Yeah, talk to me about, because you have kids and you have grandkids. Can you think about seeing them again and trying to help them heal?
Well, I was so naive because the one young man, he had nothing, keys, no wallet, nothing. He lost everything on the boat.
Right.
And his truck was in Santa Barbara. So it even crossed my mind that perhaps Bob and I could give him a ride back to his truck.
Right.
And I didn't even think of an investigation or anything like that. Nothing like that crossed my mind. It was, these poor guys have nothing. They can't get anywhere, go anywhere. They have no shoes on.
You wanted to help.
I wanted to help. And then when we got to shore, and of course, that was the last we saw of them.
You think you'll ever see them again, Bob?
I think it's probably quite possible. You know, we were in the area there, and you never know how. We go to some of the same places that
Yeah.
they may show up. But like Shirley said, they used our cell phones to contact their relatives. And,
Right.
And one of the things about cell phones is you don't remember numbers.
Right.
And the one young man, he had no one's number memorized. So finally I turned my Facebook page on and I said, you know, maybe you could send a message to someone you know
On Facebook.
on Facebook.
And did that work?
Yes, he left a message with one of the people he worked with.
Talk to me, we talked about religious and your perspective on life. Bob, how do you put this into context? When you got home, did you pray about this? Did you say, Lord,
we
why
prayed
us?
about it during.
Oh,
Talk to us
yes.
about, tell me about that.
You're praying for I had a very good idea on what happened, you know, that there were not going to be any survivors. And so all I could do then was pray for the family, so that, you know, to give them some kind of comfort, and because we were just plain helpless there. We couldn't do anything other than whatever the Coast Guard wanted me to do, and that's what I was going to do. They're the professionals, not us. And so, you know, that's all we could do is pray about it, and for the families, because you know, even for us, even being there, it was just by God's will that we were even there. We'd never
weren't
been in that
supposed to
particular
be.
cove.
There was no plan.
Yeah, it was, you know, our daughter's boat. We were gonna be in another spot, but her boat and our son-in-law's boat had some mechanical problems, so they couldn't go. And
Wow.
so we just went out on our own and went to a different spot.
It was fate that you were there.
Oh, total
Yes.
fake.
Yes.
Total fake.
To me, it's God plans where we're going to be.
And we were the only boat for miles in that area there. We were it. They had no communication, nothing.
Hard to
And
imagine had you not been there.
Well, you know, they would
I
have.
keep thinking that shore wasn't very far away.
Yeah, the five guys probably would have been safe, but they would have had and it was totally dark. Even when I left the area,
Oh, yes.
I had to rely on my instruments to tell me where the shore was, because I couldn't see it, even though it was probably only a couple hundred feet away.
Talk to me about what you've told your family about this, your children, your grandchildren. What do you say to them?
That I don't feel like a hero.
Yeah.
Everyone says I'm a hero, but I was just there. My husband just opened the door.
Yeah.
And if I could have been involved in getting people off that boat, we had room on our boat. We could have taken all of them. but we couldn't even go near the boat. It was just a mass of flames. And then at one point when I looked at the boat and I could see through the ribs and the fire burning inside the bottom of the boat.
Haunting.
Oh, yeah.
Just so horrifying to think that those people were there to enjoy occasions, to enjoy what the good Lord put there for us to enjoy. And it was gone in so quickly.
We're going to wrap up here. The 5 survivors, the crew members, did they go ashore with you or with the Coast Guard?
The captain stayed with the Coast Guard. He wanted to stay with the Coast Guard boats that were there.
And so the other 4
and the
went
other
ashore.
4, we transported them back. It took 2.5 hours. First of all, it was night. I had a guy that's injured and he's in a lot of pain, so I didn't want to make it too rough on him. And we're pulling their dinghy.
What did they say? Was there any one thing that one of those 4 that were on your boat said that stuck in your mind as you were going to shore? Is there one thing that they said?
Shirley could answer that better because she consoled them pretty well.
Yeah.
While, you know.
What were they saying, Shirley?
Basically that they had celebrated the birthdays. And like the one young man, this was his 3rd job of the week. Like he only did this on weekends. And I think the other young man was in a state of shock because
you'd have to be.
His girlfriend was on that boat.
She was the one crew member that didn't make it off, I think.
And there was one crew member that was down in with the rest of the...
She might have been a crew member.
Yeah. I don't know what her was...
I don't remember that.
They all had to be in shock.
Yeah.
Yes, and shaking. And shaking. And this is why I took all my husband's long sleeve fishing shirts. And the captain wanted a jacket and a pair of my husband's jeans. He had ripped his jumping from the top of the boat.
Is there anything else you'd like us to include in this report?
I just wish that I know how horrifically difficult this will be for those who survived. This burden to bear. I wasn't on the crew. I was just a bystander, but I feel their pain. And
the suffering of the families.
The suffering of the families.
Those that are left.
That are left.
Yeah.
Things like this, like I would really like to know how it could have happened.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night that a boat catches fire and is destroyed so quickly.
You are obviously a very close couple. You're holding hands.
That's good.
That's good. That's good. What has this done to your relationship as you've gone through this storm as a couple?
Well, I feel I have a different perspective. I want to withdraw, and my husband feels that he needs to talk it out and get rid of it.
Kind of therapeutic.
Yeah,
Yes.
for me it is.
But-
and she can't understand that, but that's okay.
Yes.
You know, but I think it's made us closer. For me, and you know, I feel that it's made us a bit closer, but we've always been like this. But,
Right.
you know, we've been through a lot, and this
we've-
though is, like, this has been a rough year for us.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a good one.
I've had some major health issues, and this was really the first boat trip that I've had since last year.
Yeah. And we were having a good time, just the 2 of us, you know.
Yeah.
We're out there, we drop a line in.
I caught a fish.
She caught a fish, and we invited it to dinner.
I cooked it for dinner, and it was delicious. I'd never tasted calico bass before.
Yeah.